Steel Curtain Network.
Touchdown! Touchdown para Calvin Austin! El Monte Washington es arma. ¿Quién más? ¿Quién más? DJ Watt!
What is up, Pittsburgh Steelers fans, and welcome back to another episode of the Steelers Preview. It is Thursday, and yes, we want to get y'all out of here before a big AFC North game happening on Thursday Night Football. For those that are watching live, thank you for joining us. I'm Jeff Hartman, joined by Dave Schofield and Bryan Davis. Dave, what's going on?
Not too much. Ready for Steelers football to get back at 1 p.m. on Sunday when God intended NFL football to be played. Right. All that good stuff. Even if it's not at 1 o'clock. Man, one, we're missing Steelers football after a week. Two, we're missing Sunday Steelers football. So let's get back to a normal schedule.
That's right. Bryan Davis, what's up?
Yes, sirree. I concur with Dave. I will say this, that as soon as Sunday night rolls around, I feel like the bye week's over, because I don't consider the Steelers on the bye as soon as that week ends of football, even though I know there are games on Monday night. I get that. I just like the fact that Tuesday comes around, there's a press conference plus a trade deadline. So I think with the trade deadline being this week, it kind of felt like you had a little bit of a game. You had something to root for, something to cheer for, and it's been exciting.
Absolutely. The Steelers are gearing up for the Washington Commanders in Week 10. Bryan will be in attendance for this game. It used to be FedEx Field. I don't know what it's called now. But can we just make a glaring declaration, because we all live in the DMV area? If you hear anyone say the Steelers are headed to the nation's capital, no, they're not. Like the stadium is not in DC. It's in Virginia.
It's inside the Beltway.
No, it's in Maryland, isn't it?
Yeah,
it's in Landover.
Landover, yeah. So
Maryland has two NFL teams.
It's not in DC.
But I mean, it is inside the Beltway. So because I know I've had people ask me, so is it really that far outside of these? No, it's not really, because anything inside the Beltway is the greater. Even outside the Beltway is, but
they're talking about getting a new stadium, and it would be even further away from DC.
Oh, absolutely.
Then way down in Virginia. Yeah.
Yes.
So that'll be interesting, but still, this is a really good test for the Steelers, and we're going to talk about this a lot in this upcoming podcast. But before we do that, guys, we did a podcast on Mike Williams, breaking news on Tuesday. We did not do one for Preston Smith, and so I'm curious as to how you all think. Well, let's talk about both of these guys as it pertains to Week 10. In other words, saying where or how much do you think they're going to play first, and how effective could they be in those limited snaps? Dave, we'll start with you.
Well, when it comes to Preston Smith, he might, I mean, obviously he's not going to start, in my opinion, because that's going to be TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. But we'll find out later that he might actually be the next guy up, potentially, after we look at that injury report. We'll see how that's going. So I think he's going to get some snaps, and his snaps will increase week by week. I kind of think you'll get the same thing with Mike Williams. I don't know if you said this is one of your over-unders when it comes. You don't have Mike Williams targets as one of your over-unders, do you, Jeff?
You bet I do.
Then I'm not going to say a word then. That's all. Then I'm not going to go into it anymore, because I don't want to ruin that, because I was going to give a specific number, and then that's just going to spoil all.
I went in totally blind. I have no idea. Like when I had set that line, I was like, this could be so far off. I have no idea.
But wasn't that polite of me to ask before I just blurted that out there?
Oh, so, I would have just killed his thunder. Yeah, I would have.
There's no thunder involved. It was just if he wants to talk about the line ahead of time, he can. That's fine. So, Bryan, what about you? What do you think?
First of all, I'm thrilled with the additions, and then we'll throw in the fact that how will they play? Well, I consider both of these guys will have some significant playing time for what each of their roles are. Now, with Williams, he doesn't know all the terminology yet, but a lot of the terminology is the same for him because he has a connection with a coach with the Jets that had the same terminology basically as Arthur Smith did. So it's basic. The names are different, but the scheme is very close. But for him, you've got a veteran quarterback. It's a good thing that it's Russell Wilson, because Russell Wilson will basically just say, all right, Mike, you're going deep on this one. And that's not a bad thing to do in the first week when he's only been here a couple of practices. So I look back at DeAndre Hopkins getting involved within the first couple of games, Amari Cooper getting a touchdown in his first game. They tried to get Devontae Adams involved in his first game. So when you bring a guy in like this, you're going to use him somehow where it fits. And with the Steelers, it kind of fits right away. Does he have to be a number 2 this week? No, he just has to be in there to be a presence and take the onus off of the tight ends, off of George Pickens, off of Calvin Austin III, and the running game. So no matter how many snaps he gets, he's going to be valuable just for his presence on the field. Now, let's go to the other side of the ball with Preston Smith. The same thing I said with Mike Williams. Preston, go get him. That's really, you're in here, hold back or go get him. And that's basically what they have to do while these guys are learning the system.
So I think that a lot of fans, if you look at this just without black and gold glasses, you see that this is just depth. Like they just added depth at 2 positions. I think the biggest issue that some fans, not myself, have with these moves was the compensation for them. No one's complaining about a 7th round pick going to Green Bay. I think a lot of people are thinking a 5th is too strong for Mike Williams. I can't speak for you. I'm going to ask you guys this question, but I'll answer my question first. I don't value 5th through 7th round picks as much as most people do. I just don't. I think they're basically crapshoots. And the Steelers still have a 5th round pick, and they have 2 7th round picks. So, Dave, what about you? How do you view those picks that were given up for these guys?
Well, they could have a 6th round pick, but if they do, they don't have a 4th. So I don't think we want that to happen. I think, yeah, it would have been nice if the Steelers could have gotten Mike Williams for a 6th round pick, but they didn't have one to offer. Right. They didn't have some people are like, oh, do you think a 4th rounder would have gotten? They didn't have a 4th rounder. You can only go with what you got. So I still think the Steelers are fine with the draft picks that they have. Bottom line is, how many draft picks is really nice to have each draft? 7. 7 is a nice number. How many do they have right now, Jeff?
I did the article this morning and I forget. It's they have 8 or 7.
No, I'm pretty sure it's 7 because I mean, if they don't have that 6th because of
one
Fields,
of those is going,
they're going to have 2
right.
7s. Yeah,
yeah.
Then they'll have 2 7s. So the fact that you added 2 players by giving up a draft pick for each of them, and you still have 7, I'm okay with that.
Bryan, what about you?
All right, let's look at this year. No 5th, no 7th, no problem. They had a pretty nice, what a lot of people think is a half decent draft with at least Fautanu, Frazier, and Peyton Wilson, and throwing Mason McCormick. Just those 4 alone. They didn't have a 5th. They did not have a 7th. If you look at last year, no 5th, Corey Trice and Spencer Anderson. Then they were the 7ths. The no 5th in 2022. Isaiah Loudermilk in 21. Let's go ahead.
Would you have traded Loudermilk for Williams straight up?
Yeah.
Me too.
Yeah.
Zach Gentry, Marcus Allen, Brian Allen. Should I go on? Jesse James. All right, we like Jesse James. Shaquille Richardson and Wesley Johnson. They had 2 in 2014. You guys are like, who? Terry Hawthorne in 2013. Chris Rainey in 2012. Chris Carter. Not that Chris Carter. In 2011. Stevenson Sylvester and Cresden Butler and Chris Scott. Frank Summers. Joe Burnett. Dennis Dixon. Cameron Stevenson. Omar Jacobs and Charles Davis, and I'm done.
Yeah.
What's that tell you? For everybody, I got a lot of texts. Everybody's like, how could they give up a 5th? You know who Mike Williams is. He's going to get catches. Even if his floor is just where it is, even if he's just depth, he's good. Those guys, with the exception of Jesse James, nobody that ever amounted to much of anything was really on that list.
Yeah. And I said this on Let's Ride on Wednesday. Everyone brings up like, oh, Antonio Brown was a 6th round pick. Those are outliers. That's not the norm. and Tom Brady was a 6th-round pick. Yes, he was.
They're like the 2 best 6th-round picks ever.
I know. That's what I'm saying. Like, if everyone thinks that every single pick, like, let's tone it back. Brett Kiesel in the 7th round, even that is rare to get a Brett Kiesel type player who contributes as much as he did during his time. It's just rare. Dave, I agree with what you always say. I think it's you, it might have been Brian, how 7th round picks are basically the guys that you just don't want to negotiate as undrafted free agents. You want to get them before they get there.
I said it. Brian has quoted me.
Yes.
So many times, more times than I've ever said it.
That's a Dave original, but I stole it. And
no, and you give me credit every time you ever use it. So use it as much as you like to, Brian. But no, it just, it really is. I mean, look, the Steelers didn't have a 7th round pick this past year. They had 2 6ths. Who were those picks?
In the 6th, it was oh my gosh, the guy from Iowa, the defensive lineman,
Logan
Lee, and then Ryan what?
Watts.
Ryan Watts.
You came close with Watts.
Both of which are on IR.
Yeah,
both are on IR. Watts can't come back. He was put on IR before the season started. And Logan Lee, I don't know why the Steelers would use one of their 8 spots on him. I don't see him coming back this year. But who's playing and even quote unquote starting games for the Steelers?
That's
undrafted Beanie Bishop.
Yeah.
So when you get 7th round for sure, and it could even be a little bit, and I still think the Steelers went the way they did with their 6th round picks because they didn't have ones in the 7th. So it's as long as you know what you got going in, you're fine with how you do it. And even if these guys are nothing more than average depth, I still don't have a problem with what the Steelers give up.
If I could say this real quick, they've had more success over the last 20 years with 7th round picks than they have 5th. The only 5th that I thought, like I said, Jesse James. The 7th, we like Corey Trice. We think he could be something. Of course, you said Kiesel. That was 2002, I believe. 2001 or 2002. And Kelvin Beachum is another one that you can bring up as a 7th round pick.
I love
that ended up really good. AQ Shipley didn't stick with him, but he stuck in the league a while. He was a 7th round pick. So I thought they've done better at number 7, way better than they've done at 5.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about this upcoming game. I think there's a lot to discuss here between the Steelers and the Commanders. The Commanders offensively have really done a great job in their first 9 games. They're 7-2, and their defense has come on strong. We live in Maryland, and I know I have a lot of people that I talk with that are Commanders fans, and going into the season, they all said, man, Daniels looks a lot better than we thought, and they think the offense could be good. But they were always concerned about a couple things. One was like wide receiver depth. They're like, after Terry McLaurin, who do they have? Especially after they trade Jahan Dotson to Philadelphia before the season starts. Now they're even more depleted at wide receiver. But then they also said, well, I'm not sure about the defense, but the defense has been playing markedly better than expected. When you think about this game and how it could play out, obviously we're not talking predictions yet. What are some of the storylines you're seeing, Dave?
Well, I kind of broke down the matchups a little bit on Pittsburgh Standard Time this morning. Kind of a little bit of a flashback to Steelers Stat Geek, doing some of that. I find it interesting how the Steelers run defense versus the Commanders run offense is a really strength on strength matchup. But where the Steelers hold the big advantage is their run offense versus the Commanders run defense. But we've seen the Steelers not run well against teams that are really strong against the run. To me, exactly how did you phrase the question again? Because I don't want to answer it wrong.
What are some storylines you envision going into this game?
Yeah, and it's, can the Steelers continue to effectively run the football against a team that isn't ranked very well against the run? I think that's a big one. And honestly, can the Steelers can they improve offensively in the red zone and get the job done defensively in the red zone?
Yeah, it's going to be big. Brian, what about you?
I actually listened to all of your shows this week, fellas. And so I listened to PST and I heard some of those stats. I listened to the stats that Jeff brought out as well. I was looking at this. I know you just talked about, Washington in the red zone and all of that. I think if the Steelers can stop the running game, that's the big thing, because you force this guy, Jaden Daniels, who I think is astonishingly fantastic. But I don't even think astonishingly is a word. Astonishingly, excuse me. But what I'm going to say is I really think that if you have the Redskins, excuse me, oh my gosh, did I do that? If you have the Commanders passing the football, then you have a little better chance of stopping them because of, like Jeff said, Terry McLaurin. The other thing to look at here is I know the Steelers have not beaten too many teams with winning records. I'm not sure what Atlanta's is right now, but I know Denver has a winning record. The Chargers have a winning record. This team in Washington has only beaten one team, and that's the Arizona Cardinals with a winning record.
Yeah, that's important to note. They have a last place schedule. They were finished last in the NFC East last year. And I think that's really important to note. I saw this. I can't take credit for it. I think it was Mina Kimes and Field Yates. I saw a clip of their podcast come up on my Twitter feed, and they talked about how the Commanders run tempo offense more than anyone else in the NFL. And what is the number one defense against tempo? The Pittsburgh Steelers. But then she even went into some of the really next gen stats, which are obviously powered by, what is it, Zebra Technologies, Dave, I think. And it's all about how you had that guy on your podcast. It was all about how many times Jaden Daniels escapes the tackle box and how the Steelers defense, when they keep the quarterback in the tackle box, is one of the best pass defenses in the league. But when they escape, they're one of the worst. So there's a lot of these underlying storylines that I think are fascinating. And this game, I think, is going to be close. I'm not going to talk about my prediction until we get to it, but there's a lot of people out there that think that this game could be a blowout. Dave, do you see a world where that happens? Either way.
I do. I could see the Steelers. I would be surprised if the Steelers got blown out because of the strength of their defense.
Yeah.
I could see the Steelers doing the blowing out because that's not the strength of Washington. And Bryan even said, make a pass ball. They're still 11th in the NFL in passing. So it's not that they're just better at running than they are passing. So I could see, but at the same time, I feel if it's a close game, I think it's advantage Washington because they've just found ways to win those games. We've seen the Hail Mary. We've seen them luck out with the Giants not having a kicker. We've seen other things where they've won these close games. I mean, they beat the Bengals by 5. Now they blew out the Cardinals. That's a whole different story, and the Browns. But the Browns is the Browns. And of course they also blew out the Panthers. But those other ones, even this last Giants game was fairly close. That they've just found that they're that team that's just finding a way to win against decent teams and really taking care of business against bad teams. So if you look at it, the only teams on their schedule they played so far that's anywhere close to the Steelers record right now is the Ravens, and they lost that one by a touchdown. So what would you consider a blowout there, Jeff?
I would say 2 scores or more. But that's tough because
9 points or more. Yeah.
Yeah. Because a 10-point win, is that a blowout? Probably not. So maybe a 14-point win or more. Maybe that would be a blowout. Yeah. But that's just my own criteria. Bryan,
I don't know that they would do that. I'm just saying I would be surprised if the Steelers defense gave up that many points and the offense couldn't do anything. That would be a really, really bad day at the office for the Steelers. It would really be the Commanders catching the Steelers at their worst, in my opinion.
All right, Bryan, what about you? What do you think? Do you see this game playing out in a certain way?
No, yes. I feel that it's going to be a closer game. I cannot envision it being a blowout because that's just not the way both of these defenses really work. They, if you don't get blown out by the Ravens and their high-powered offense, then you have the propensity to keep it close. So I don't have a problem saying that I think it's going to be a closer game. I think when the Steelers play NFC teams, it's rather close unless it's games like the Carolina Panthers in 2018 where they just like beat them to shreds. But I really feel that this is a very prideful team in Washington. I feel like this is a team that thinks they're ready for prime time and maybe ready for prime time. But in the words of Ric Flair, you got to beat the man to be the man, or to be the man, you got to beat the man. Whatever way Rick was drunk when he said it, so it doesn't matter. But all I'm saying is that I'm not saying that the Steelers are the man, but the Steelers are one of the four horsemen. Let's put it that way. They're up in that echelon, and Washington needs to impress some teams more by beating the Ravens, by beating the Steelers. They did not beat the Ravens. By beating teams like that, like the Eagles.
Who they play the week after the Steelers.
Yes. So, I mean, you can beat the Giants a couple times, and you can beat the Browns, and you can beat the Cardinals, too. The Cardinals are a weird team. They're not off the charts a winning club. I'm just saying the Steelers have beaten the Raiders and beaten the Jets and the Giants too. So, I mean, I get all of that. I just want to see more consistent things out of the Washington Commanders. And when you win, like Dave said, when a team doesn't have a kicker and you win when you get a Hail Mary, that's you escaped a loss there. That's basically, I mean, that could have gone either way.
All right. A lot of this is going to come down to injuries. And so that's where we bring up the injury report. Dave, do you have that in front of you?
Of course I do.
All right. Why don't you start with the Steelers?
All right. With the Steelers, not a lot of things that are really surprising here until there was one addition today. Cam Hayward was one of the two additions today, but he didn't. That's his Thursday off. That's just what happened. So let's look at some of the good things. Cordero Patterson, full both days. Zach Frazier, full both days. Guys that could come off of IR and Ben Skoranek and Tyler Matakevich, full both days. Justin Fields, with the hamstring issue where he was third quarterback the last game, full both days. Now get into things that are a little bit more okay. Nick Herbig has been limited the last 2 days. So he's working his way back. Is he going to play this week? Is he going to be full strength this week? We shall see. Terrell Edmonds has not practiced this week, but it's been due to an illness. Is this one of those things that's really, he's a little under the weather. He doesn't need to practice, or, hey, this is kind of knocking him out. He's not going to have the energy to go. But with Cam Sutton coming back, he's a guy that potentially, would have to fight to get a helmet even. Michael Pruitt showed up on the injury report today, did not practice with a knee. Other than Isaac Seumalo getting rest yesterday and being full today, I think that's everybody.
Yeah. Bryan, any thoughts about the injury report from the Steelers side?
I think it is exactly what we hoped for when they were going into the bye. We said this is the right time for them to go to the bye because they don't have to get guys healthy. They have to just get guys back. You don't lose a guy right before the bye and say, oh, hope the bye helps them. These guys were expected back. So if that happens, the big thing that everybody would be worried about the most seems to be Herbig, because it looks like Frazier is full on back. And Herbig is a guy that you have an insurance policy for now too. You've been winning without Herbig, but it would be great to add him and great to add all of these guys. You've been winning without Frazier too. So, I mean, these are pleasant additions, but there's nothing there that has me going, they're in trouble.
Yeah, for lifelong fan 07 who's asking about Cam, he was given the day off, just a rest day. He always gets Thursdays off. Yeah, he's fine.
And he's been having Wednesdays and Thursdays, but he did do yesterday because it was after the bye week.
It was the old Mike Tomlin advanced age on Troy Polamalu. I think he said something like that.
But no, I'm going to say that I don't think Nick Herbig's going to play this week. Hamstring injuries. I go back to what Tomlin said about Justin Fields. We don't want a short-term thing to turn into a long-term thing. So if he's close and he's been limited all week, man, as much as I want that guy to play, don't push it. Don't push it. Like, make sure he is 100% healed. Then let him come out and let him wreak havoc on defenses. But I don't think he's going to play. Dave, anything to add?
No, that's the Steelers.
Right.
It looks pretty good, actually, when you think about it.
I agree.
But notice that the Steelers did not open the window for Corey Trice when Coach
Yeah.
Tomlin did mention him on Tuesday.
I'm surprised by that.
But at least that means he's probably getting close to opening the window.
Yeah. All right, let's go to the Commander side of things. This is interesting.
Yeah, it is. Thank goodness they kind of weeded out some of these, rest stuff. But first and foremost, the player with no number yet, cornerback Marshawn Lattimore, didn't practice either day. He was just added on Tuesday with a hamstring. I don't think he played in the Saints last game, did he? People were wondering, was he really hurt? Was he not? Okay. Tackle Cornelius Lucas didn't practice either day with an ankle. Now, I was trying to look up stuff about him. I'm like, is he a starter or is he not? Well, they have him listed as the left tackle, and he's played around half the snaps this year, but so has their rookie third-round pick. I don't know if it's jumbo package or exactly what it is, but he is their highest rated offensive lineman according to PFF, their highest scored this season. So I don't know. He didn't play last week either. So that's one. Kicker Austin Siebert was limited with a right hip. He didn't practice on Wednesday. We'll see how that goes. Defensive end Dorrance Armstrong was limited with a shoulder. That was both days. Center Tyler, I can never say his name right. Is it B? Some people say it's badass, but it's Biotish or so. I don't know even how you say it. They used to be with, huh?
You got it. Biotish.
Okay. He was full today after being limited yesterday. He's dealing with a thumb issue, which that's on the snapping hand. That's a big deal when you're playing center. Defensive end Clellan Farrell, former 3rd overall pick of the Raiders. He didn't practice with a knee today after being limited yesterday, which is kind of weird. Maybe that's not going too well. Linebacker Dante Fowler was limited with a groin both days. Running back Brian Robinson was limited with a hamstring both days. He did not play last week. Guard/tackle Andrew Wiley, shoulder limited both days. Cornerback Noah, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to say this? Igbinoghene. I have no idea.
Nailed
I don't
it.
even know why I'm saying it. He was full both days with the thumbs. Why did I even try to say it then? And then tight end Colston, I'm not even going to say it. Number 41, limited with a hamstring. If you're looking at the list yourself, you would see why I wasn't going to say it. You see the list, Jeff? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I'm not looking at it now, no, but
okay,
I will.
I'll say it. It is tight end Colson Yankoff.
Ah.
That's my new favorite player.
Imagine getting that jersey.
Yankoff.
All right, Brian, time to get your yank off. All right, what do you think about the injury report?
I don't care, really. It's be honest, is the biggest deal to me there, but it looks like he's fine. I feel like they're coming in here relatively healthy. A lot of those names, I consider myself knowing a lot of players from other teams, and I couldn't help Dave on some of those names. I don't know who they are either. And I actually follow the Commanders in this area. So, they're not my favorite team like Vegas is, but I do follow them. And
there's only one Raiders.
Yes, of course. So, but I don't care about this. Steelers need to take care of business with whoever's there. Sometimes the injury report on the other side is fool's gold because you're like, oh, they're down to their 3rd offensive lineman and the Steelers don't get a sack.
Yeah. For me, Lattimore, I was curious as to, okay, they trade for this guy. Is he going to be in the lineup? Because he is a good corner. And so is he going to be out there against George Pickens or Mike Williams or Calvin Austin? And so far it looks like no, that he's not going to be out there. So that's a boost. And then Robinson, the running back, he missed last game, like Dave mentioned. He's got a hamstring of his own. He's been limited both days. That's going to be interesting to see how that plays out, because I think they're going to need all hands on deck for this game. And so we'll see how they manipulate
This is a big one for them. You're right. This is
absolutely.
This is what Bryan was saying before. This is showing, that you can hang with those with the storied franchise.
Well, not only that, they're 7-2. If they lose this game, now all of a sudden the Eagles have a window. And so they're in it just like the Steelers are in terms of the first place in their divisions, trying to keep those leads. This is a big game. This is a big game for sure. All right, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back after this break, we're going to do the over-under game. We're going to talk predictions. We'll reminisce a little bit, and then we'll get you out of here. So if you're watching live on any platform, don't go anywhere. We're not going anywhere. For those on the audio side, we'll be right back after a word from our sponsors. All right, Steeler fans, welcome back. It's time for the second half of the Steelers Preview Podcast. I don't know why we didn't update our over-under last week, but we didn't. So, Dave, we got to go back all the way to week 8, and we got to update everyone because we had – I don't even know how we did.
I do.
Go ahead.
And guess what? Bryan does too, because I actually figured it out Monday night after not this past Monday night, the one before, after the post-game show. Bryan, while Jeff had to go record Let's Ride, Bryan stuck around to help me figure out how we all did. And Jeff, you did pretty good. You got 4.
Really?
Yeah, 4 out of 6.
And everyone else got 5 or 6 probably.
Yeah, you just didn't do as good as the rest of us. Bryan and I each got 5. So we all did fairly well. Bryan missed the first one, which was he was the under with the Steelers rushing yards. The one I missed was you missed this one too, which was taking the under for Russell Wilson pass attempts.
Yeah,
he did go over the 24.5, but not by much. And the Washington targets, where Jeff went over. We all took the over and the Steelers to win. So we both got 2, or all got 2 points for that one. So when we look at these overall, Bryan still holds the lead with 24, followed by Jeff at 23, me at 16. You know what? You guys just wait. I needed to get back into doing these matchups to really think these things through when it comes to the numbers. So we'll see if that helps you a little bit. And Bryan and I are still tied when it comes to picking the game and the over-under. Picking the spread and the over-under. We both have 6 and Jeff has 5.
All right, fantastic. So are you guys ready for this week?
I'm ready.
All right, perfect. Let's go with the first one. Pittsburgh Steelers passing yards, total passing yards. I've got this number at, might be a little low actually when I think about it, 220.5. 220.5. Bryan, what say you?
I think of the Russell Wilson era. I think that's child's play. Take the over.
Okay. Dave?
All right. I haven't even written it down yet. All right. So what was it again? It was Steelers
passing
yards.
Correct.
And I just didn't catch the number. You said 220.5?
220.5, yeah.
And Bryan took the over.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm going to join him with this one. I'm going to take the over. I'm not saying that they're going to tear up through the air, but I think they'll get that much, even if you subtract off the sacks.
Yeah, okay, I'm with you guys. Again, I thought maybe that was too low, but we're all going over on that one. Let's go to the next one. Not touching Najee Harris this week. We're going with Jaylen Warren. Jaylen Warren rushing yards. I've got the line at 44.5. Bryan, over under.
I'm actually going to go under on that. I like that. I like the fact that Cordero Patterson's back, and I think that does not eat into Najee Harris. I think it eats into Jaylen Warren.
Okay. Dave?
Bryan just said everything that I was thinking, so ditto. Twice for me. There we go. That's what he's saying.
I'm taking the over. I think Jaylen Warren busts off a long run and he gets it in like 3 carries. So I think he has that.
I think that's what it would take, honestly.
I agree. And I just don't think the Commanders' run defense is any good. I mean, they're giving up, let me see here, rushing yards per game, 143 yards a game. That's 28th in the league. Like, that's bad. So I'll take the over. It's only 44 yards too. Okay, let's go. This guy kills me. I wrote an article about him last Sunday for my letter from the editor. You got it. I can't figure him out. He's killed so many of my parlays this past 2 years because I can't wrap my head around when he's going to have success and when he's not. There are certain times where you can get players, figure things out. He's not one of them. I've got Pat Freiermuth receiving yards, 35.5. 35.5, Brian. What about you?
You know what? I like that. We'll go ahead and say that he gets 36. So I'm going to say, let's say over.
Okay. Dave?
I'm going to learn from Jeff, and I'm going to say he gets 34 and take
I'm going under as well because I'm like, my gosh, every time I set a line for this guy, like, 40 or more, he doesn't even come close. It's like 30. So until he has
17,
a couple,
stuff like that. I mean, remember, I've had a couple huge parlays, like 9 or 10 leg parlays over the last couple seasons, and I missed one part, and it's been Pat Freiermuth receiving yards. I just got to leave him off.
Yeah, and then it's like
Najee,
like
$500. Nope.
Yeah, early on in the season, Najee was kind of sporadic. He's found his groove. Until Pat Freiermuth finds his groove, I'm just gonna have to shy away. All right, let's go to the next one. Pittsburgh Steelers defensive takeaways. I'm going to preface this by saying the Commanders have only turned the ball over 3 times in 9 games. They do not turn the ball over. I've got it at a half. So either they do or they don't. Brian?
They're always good for one sometimes. And I know they've been a lot better in that category. Washington just doesn't take the ball away that much. I'm going to say 1. Over.
Okay, Dave.
This is a tough one because I could very well see this game being turnover free. I'm going to say this now, but now we're going to see like 6 total because I said that. But man, that as a betting person, you take the odds. So I'm unfortunately going to follow Bryan. I'm going to say over that hopefully they can get 1.
I think that, everyone wants to say, well, they've only given up 3 and they forget the fact that the Steelers have taken it away. I think 3rd most in the league. So I'm going to go over as well. I don't think it's a 3 takeaway game. It could be, but still I'll take.
I almost took the under just to go against you too, to try to make up some ground, but I had a feeling on this one, I would lose ground rather than make it up.
Okay. Next one, Chris Boswell field goals. These are made field goals, not field goal attempts. 2.5. Brian, over under.
Wow, that's a really good one. He would have to make 3 here. I'm going to give him 3. I'll take 3 here. That just shows that the Steelers offense isn't completely closing out every single red zone attempt. So, yeah, let's go for it. I'll go over.
All right, Dave.
I've already picked my score, so I got to make it match my score.
Same.
So I have to go under.
Okay. I had to match my score and I had to go over. So, I've got the over here with the 2.5. Last one, Dave, you predicted this at the very top of the show. Mike Williams targets. I was completely blindfolded by this because you have no idea what the Steelers are going to do with him, how many snaps he's going to play. Think about when Deontay Johnson was traded to Baltimore. They said he'll probably play 10 or 15 snaps this game in the first game for Baltimore. We haven't heard anything like that about Mike Williams. I set the line at 3.5. I have no clue. Brian, what do you think?
He's going to get 2 or 3, so I'm going to go under.
Okay. Dave?
I predicted it on Pittsburgh Standard Time of 3, so I have to go under.
Dang it, I'm going under as well. I do think, though,
if you'd have done 2.5, that would have been interesting.
I had 2.5, and I was like, that seems too low.
If you would have gone 3, I would have gone push.
Yeah, I'm not doing pushes. So I would not be shocked if, let's say, the opening script, they get to around midfield if they don't chuck it deep to Mike Williams on the first drive, whenever that is, the first drive, to say,
hey,
we are going to throw it to this guy. He is a viable option, a viable threat.
That would have been a good line. Mike Williams targets on the Steelers opening drive, 0.5.
Yeah, that could have
been a good. To me, if you're going to use him as the deep threat, you've got to hit it you've got to at least look like you're going to try it in the first or second drive.
Right. Exactly. All right. So those are the 6 over-unders for this week. It is time for predictions. Right now, the Steelers are getting 3 points on the road in Washington with an over-under of 45 points. If you want to do money line bets, just for those gamblers out there, plus 124 if you want the Steelers on the money line, minus 148 if you want the Commanders on the money line. So, Brian, what's your final score? How do you see this thing shaking out?
Even though I'm nervous about this game, I'm going to go ahead and take the Steelers here. I'm going to take them by the score of 23-17.
23-17?
Yes.
So
go ahead.
So that's the under.
Take the money line.
All right. Dave, what about you?
All right. This is one where the Steelers, they need to come out of the bye and get something done. You've had the rest. You've had plenty of time to get ready for this team. Go to Washington, make it happen. This isn't just a statement game for Washington because, we've got to beat someone like the Steelers. This is also a statement game for the Steelers. We need to beat someone that has more wins than we do right now. So I've got the Steelers winning this one. As I said, I think if it's close, that would make me a little bit more nervous with Washington pull it off. I have the Steelers winning this one 31-20.
That'd be awesome. That would be awesome. I am going to go with the over as well. I like the Steelers to win this one in a close game, 26-23. I feel like there's going to be plays, and this happens with rookies all the time. Not so much last year. We know CJ Stroud had a great rookie year. He beat the Steelers. Dorian Thompson-Robinson, how the hell did that happen? But it did. I think there comes a time where some rookies make those mistakes, and I could see this being a game where Washington has the ball. They need a field goal to tie it or a touchdown to win it, and Jaden Daniels makes a mistake, and he hasn't made a lot, but I think he could potentially make that mistake. I like the Steelers 26-23, and that would be the over barely. So
okay,
we'll see.
Can I say something?
Yeah,
because we had someone in the live chat say teams usually stink after the bye. Just saying.
not the Steelers.
Listen to the other shows, especially PST.
Yeah, 13-4 under Mike Tomlin coming out of the bye. How many did they win in a row now, fellas?
7.
Yeah. And the rookie quarterback thing, because that's what I always talk about the numbers against rookie quarterbacks. Recent history hasn't been great. They did beat Bo Nix earlier this year, so that's fine. But last year they went 0-2, I think, didn't they, against rookie quarterbacks? Those two guys I mentioned.
Stroud and
I know they lost
Stroud and Dorian Thompson-Robinson.
DTR or whatever it was.
Yeah. So, anyways, okay, good stuff. Brian, trip down memory lane, right?
All right, yeah. Tell me when you're starting the clock, and we will get going.
All right, ready and go.
All right, for the longest time, I was going to go with the night before the election in 2008, where the Steelers went to Landover, and they were calling the nation's capital, but went to play Washington at the time. And I was going to go with that game. The Redskins at the time were, I believe, 7-1, and the Steelers stopped them and ended up winning the championship that year. The Redskins kind of fell off. Now, let's go back to 1979. And the reason I'm going back this far is I was 7 years old, almost 8. And my uncle, you've heard me mention that my father and my father's brother-in-law, my mom's brother, my uncle, are the ones most responsible for getting me into the Steelers. And he had a heart attack, and he was in the hospital in Pittsburgh. And we had to go to Pittsburgh to visit him in the hospital. And I'm 7, and I'm scared to death to go see my uncle. And we went on Sunday, and they were playing Washington. Washington had 2 losses at the time, and the Steelers had 2 losses. Washington had 3. And it was a really good matchup. Washington ended up being close to the playoffs that year. And what happened in this game, it was 7-7. Riggins took the ball in to tie it up, and the Steelers ran away with it. Over 100 yards for Lynn Swann and John Stallworth. Over 5 or 6 guys had rushing attempts and over 10, 15 yards rushing for the Steelers. It was just a balanced game. The defense just dominated. And I looked at my uncle who was there. He was all hooked up to all these things. He lived another 30 years or so, but he said, "Hey, you don't have to be afraid. Let's just watch the Steelers." And that's what we did. We watched the Steelers together. And I said, "Wow, they're pretty good." He said, "Bryan, they're the Steelers." And that's it. And I remember that as long as I'm going to live. And when I think about my uncle and I think of them playing this Washington team, I think about what was a pretty magical moment, which was probably throwaway for everybody else, but I'll never forget it because it made me not scared to visit somebody in the hospital.
All right, I'll let you go over. That's 224, right. But I was like, he's talking about family, he's telling good stories. We're going to let it go. I'm shocked you didn't talk. I know why you talked about that. That was a great story. The final game in Three River Stadium.
Yeah, the Richard Huntley game.
Steelers beat the doors off the Redskins in that game.
Yeah, and they had all those stars. They had Dion and Bruce Smith and all those washed up stars.
Also, Washington played the Steelers and the Bumblebees, didn't they?
Yeah, Robert.
RG3.
I was going to call him by his awful nickname.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to go ahead and do that.
That was 2012, right?
I think
Yeah.
so.
The Bumblebees?
Yeah.
All right, good stuff. Dave, trivia, you ready?
Yeah, well, my trivia actually has to do with this matchup as well. I didn't know how much Bryan would cover it, but what's interesting is, remember, the Steelers, part of the reason when I do trivia at times is I'd like to say since the merger. Why do I say that? Do you guys know why that's really important? What happened with the NFL merger with the Pittsburgh Steelers?
Well, they switched over to the AFC. They went from the NFL to the AFC.
Exactly, where most of the NFL teams stayed in the NFC, and the Steelers were one of those that switched conferences. Them and the Browns. And was there anyone else? No. There was this change in conference later in the 80s with the Seahawks, but that's a whole different story. So what's interesting is because of that, the Steelers went from playing Washington a couple times a year to not playing them nearly as much. Since the merger, how many times have the Pittsburgh Steelers played in Washington or the greater Washington area, whether it be Maryland or whatnot? How many games have they played on the road against Washington since the NFL merger?
On the road against Washington.
20.
No, I can't.
Since the merger?
I don't know, Dave.
No, I can't even go that
throwing
far.
out random numbers.
I'm going to
75, 45, 20, 16, 10.
You're killing me, Jeff. 16.
Maybe I should have slipped in the answer ahead of time, so at least you could have forgot what it really.
Why don't you just tell us how many games they played on the road again?
If we go in the 70s, 80s, 90s, I'll say, let's go ahead and say 2, 4, 6, 9 times.
In Washington?
Yes.
3.
That's it?
Well, wait. Are you talking about the state of? I mean the district?
No, meaning road games against the Washington Redskins / football team / Commanders.
Oh,
3?
They were all, wow.
3. That's right. 3. They were in 2016, 2008, and the last time the Steelers lost in Washington, it was also an election year, like most of the ones have been. Well, all of them have been since 2000. That was the only other one that was an election year since the merger, where they played each other, and they played in Washington. The last time the Steelers lost there was right before the election of George Bush.
That was week
George
2, yeah.
H.W. Bush. It was 1988 is the last time that they lost in Washington by 1 point, 29-30. So they just haven't played there. What's interesting, they just haven't played in Washington. Yet in 1966, the Steelers played Washington in back-to-back weeks. They played them in week 3 at home, and then week 4 in Washington. They lost them both. But when's the last time you can remember where a team played another NFL team in back-to-back weeks? That's great. So they used to play them all the time, and ever since then, let me get the year right. Since 1968, the Steelers have only played in Washington or the greater Washington area 3 times.
That's crazy.
I couldn't believe that when I saw that, so I just thought that was interesting.
That's crazy. Never would have guessed that. So, all right. Let's do some full frontal final thoughts here. I think that's what it is. I don't know.
Full frontal?
Or was that what it was?
Full frontal was last week, and then there was something even dirtier the week before, and
Felt up final
Felt
thoughts.
up.
Felt up.
That's what it was.
well, we had full frontal in there like last week. So yeah.
All right. From the Beehive, Brian Davis. Go ahead.
All right. This is simple. This is the daunting part of the schedule, and I didn't put the air quotes up, but I'm going to say that's air quote thing, because when you look at the schedule release back in May and look now, everything looks completely different. And we said that it would look completely different, even though our picks, even though they were off with the teams, the records were very, very close to what we thought they would be so far. I thought I was given a little more wishful thinking. I'm more pleased that they are 6-2 than them actually really believing they were going to be 6-2 back in May. But when I look at the next 3 games, I think this is the most important stretch right now for this team, because if you go 2-1 in the next 3 games, that means you have either beaten Baltimore or you have either beaten Washington, at least one of those teams. And that's a pretty big deal, because even though I said that the Washington team isn't a complete primetime team yet, they're pretty darn close, and they're ready to turn that corner. But if you beat one of those teams from the state of Maryland, then you're in pretty good shape. And then you have the Browns. You would have to beat the Browns if you go 1-1 in the first 2. But the reason I'm saying that is then you are at 8 wins, and everything else looks a little less daunting as you take a look at it. I looked in the live chat. I saw that Russell Wilson is 5-0 against the Philadelphia Eagles. Not something that I knew before tonight, so thank you for that stat. I really think that this is going to define whether the Steelers are contenders or not, and you'll find out right here, right now, when you take on the teams from Maryland. But you can't worry about Baltimore. You can't worry about Cleveland, and then you can't worry about Cincinnati, who comes after that, until you take care of business against Washington. This is a big win if they beat them. If they lose this game, it's not going to kill you, but you're not going to want to lose this game. You're going, just like Washington needs to prove who they are, the Steelers prove that they're contenders if they go ahead and start off with a win against a very promising team.
All right, Dave, time for your felt up final thoughts. Go ahead.
I don't know if they'll be exactly that, but this is actually shaping up to be the kind of matchup that I feel better about. First of all, it's a non-conference team on the road. These are the games that hurt you the least if they slip through your fingers. Just from, obviously every loss hurts, but if you're going to lose certain games, those are the better ones to lose. Not that I want them to lose for that reason, but also they're not favored. They're now playing a quality team. This is not the matchup that we thought it was going to be in May. I wish I had it written down in front of me of what the line was on this game before the season started, because I think this might have been one that the Steelers might have been a road favorite. So that makes it interesting. And also, this is the one you get where you've got back to back to back to back division games following this. But you can't overlook this game for several reasons, because it's a quality opponent and it's coming out of the bye week. So you've had a long time to focus on it. That's why I feel better about this, because I don't see any way that the Steelers would possibly be looking at the Baltimore Ravens, at the Cleveland Browns, at the Cincinnati Bengals, the Browns again, quote unquote, running the gauntlet, which is the title of the show that I don't know that we've mentioned until now. That before you do that, you've got this game that you can't. It's kind of, the Commanders have forced the Steelers to not look past them, and I like that. So now you got to go in there, get the job done. The sky is not falling if the Steelers don't come out of Washington with a victory. It would be a loss to a quality opponent, or at least the way that it looks right now. But let's just go get it done and give yourself a little bit more wiggle room as you head into those stretch of division games.
I've got a couple final thoughts real quick. This is a note to the Washington Commanders, to their fan base, and to all 31 other freaking NFL teams that decide that they want to hand out little towels whenever the Steelers come to town and somehow think that it's going to make a freaking difference. First and foremost, expect a crap ton of Steeler fans at this game on Sunday. Bryan's going to be one. There's a lot of Steeler fans in this area, a lot of transplants in this DMV area, and they will flock to that stadium, whatever the hell they're calling it. But for them to say, we're going to give out little burgundy towels to compete with the gold terrible towels, can we get something out there to the public that state that no Steeler fan is carrying around a terrible towel that they got as they walked into Acrisure Stadium or Heinz Field? You have to buy them yourself. They go towards a charity. It's a Myron Cope official terrible towel, unless you get like the ones, what are the
They've
Steeler
handed
ones?
out pink ones in October before, but that doesn't even count. Yeah,
those aren't terrible towels.
They did just hand out cancer ones just recently.
So that would have been similar to the pink ones that did.
Yeah, they're not pink; they were rainbow.
Yeah.
Anyways,
those aren't. They're not terrible
towels are not handed out. Okay, you don't have kids that say, "I got this one. I went to a week 2 game." Unless you have a pink one or a rainbow one, the original terrible towel, like, that's hideous. That's disgusting. Get that out of here. That's not a Myron Cope terrible towel. Okay, so I hate when people do this. I know in Atlanta in week 1, they gave out flags and stuff trying to compete. You just can't. Like, you just can't do it. You can't do it. It's not the same. This thing with the Steelers and their fans is not a bunch of propaganda. It's not that it's been handed out and they just keep giving them away. It's different. For crying out loud, stop it. Okay, that's all. I'm done. All right, good show as always, guys.
I got one of those freebies in San Diego, that famous game that I talk about. Yeah, the 100% chance of lightning from Diet Pepsi.
Gosh,
that wasn't the Rickroll game you're talking about, or is that a different game?
No,
that
was the Go Chargers Go.
Yeah.
The Governator. All right, okay, so we'll be back. I know Bryan won't be on the post-game show, but I'll be there with Dave. We might have someone else joining us. We'll let you know. But other than that, I hope everyone enjoys the game. We'll see you next week for another Steelers preview. Dave, why don't you send us out?
Hey.
See you next week, everyone. Take it easy.
Steel Curtain Network. Get it.
Everybody else gets a little tight.